Soldiers of Reddit who have faced child soldiers in combat, what has been your, or your comrades' experience? Any unique challenges you or others have faced? Not really the same thing, but this question reminded me of something I read in Stars and Stripes while I was deployed. Some army unit was doing daily patrols through some crap hole town I can't remember the name of. They did this patrol every day and the locals got to know them pretty well and didn't seem to mind. And the kids in town would run alongside the convoy and beg for candy. A bunch of soldiers started tossing them stuff from their MREs. It was a hearts and minds type thing, I guess. Anyway, one day while on this routine patrol, an IED ripped through the convoy while it was stopped and a bunch of kids were gathered around. I can't remember the exact numbers, but I think like maybe 4 soldiers were either killed or wounded and something like 20 or more kids were killed. I know it was a pretty high number, and the first thing I thought was, goddamn, this village just lost like 20% of the kids that live there. I wasn't on this convoy and I don't know anyone who was, but I had been on the same sort of mission dozens of times and could easily place myself there. I saw kids get killed by insurgents and allies, but I never saw a mass casualty situation involving little kids like this. I was deployed in Afghanistan from 2009 to 2010 and again in 2012 with the US Army. Due to the nature of my deployments, the first one was much more kinetic, and that's where most of my personal encounters with the enemy happened. A lot of the people we fought were teenagers, probably from 16-19 years old, so some of them were children by the US definition. But over there people grow up a lot faster. Everyone I dealt with was trying to kill me, so I don't feel any remorse about shooting back at them or dropping mortar rounds on them. I never had to deal with younger kids being a threat or anything like that, thankfully. And honestly, myself and everyone I knew generally really liked the little kids over there. They were usually sweet and nice, and always asked for candy and gum and stuff like that. And even when those little shoots would throw rocks at our trucks, it was hard to blame them. Not much else to do for fun around there. My brother was in Iraq during early mid-2000s when things were really whack. Said he was on gate duty one night and a kid walked up with an MRE trying to get him and his buddies to come up to the gate. Obviously none of them got up because they had MREs of their own, but long story short, the kid blew up from an IED they had put in the MRE bag the kid was holding. He had a couple other stories, but the crap he saw was enough to make a hardcore atheist find Jesus, so IDK. We don't talk much now, but if you're reading this, I love you, man. Maybe you should call him dude. I mean, it's your brother and he deserves some love after going back from heck. When I was in Iraq, a man was carrying who I believed to be his daughter on his shoulders when it became quickly apparent he had on a suicide vest. He didn't think we'd shoot. I don't think anyone aimed for the girl. Why would they? Didn't stop him from detonating. With the exception of his torso, he all but evaporated. The little girl shot straight up in the air, the lower half completely gone. Not my favorite memory. War sucks. My guess is she was 4 or 5. If you've never been in combat, it's hard to explain to people how frenetic and chaotic combat can be. You don't get a red pip that highlights where the enemy is. You don't have a radar. You don't get a notification that your shot hit its target. You hear bullets WHHRT past you, smack into something near you, ground, wall, trees, vehicles, etc. And you get behind cover. You then start yelling to your squad mates about where you collectively think the incoming fire is coming from. Sometimes it's obvious, but usually it's not. You're even more fricked if you're in an urban, semi-urban setting where there are non-combatant civilians running around. Worse still when you simply can't tell the difference between the two. You're trying to not die. You're trying to leave cover, acquire a target, shoot that target, and then get back behind cover before someone sees you and shoots you. This does not leave a whole lot of time for pondering how old your target is, what their motivations are, or how long they've been a soldier. Mix this in with the kids who would run around trying to pick up brass in the middle of a firefight, and it's just a hot, chaotic mess. I didn't want to die, so I shot back. Most people who have been in combat will tell you something similar. This was beautifully written. I hope to never understand fully the chaos of combat, but this paints a very complicated, kinetic experience. Thank you for sharing. Me, US Army, deployment in Iraq, 0809. Driver of the lead truck in a 4-truck squad. Our squad put down a few bad guys, 4 total. in a short quick firefight while trying to get out of an area well known for IEDs, and you were almost guaranteed to get shot at in this area too if you stayed any real length of time. The shooting took place about a good 300 feet ahead from where our vehicles were stopped, just to the right side of the road. They used some low walls for cover, but our gunners handled that while we took cover in behind the trucks for the most part. As soon as the shooting stopped, we loaded up and slammed on the gas to get out of there before anything else went down. Second truck in line calls out that they see some more movement where the guys were, so we drive up with some speed ready to fire just in case while we still nope the heck out of there as fast as we can. About 20-ish feet before we get there, going at a decent speed now, a kid we somehow didn't see at all during the firing before starts to what looks like jog run out holding an AK and started to fire towards us, and the gunner of my truck fires almost instantly and hits the kid. It was so quick. Muscle memory. Reactionary. I'm still convinced to this day that the gunner didn't really process and register that it was a kid before he fired. I don't think any of us did at that exact moment, myself included. The kid looked like he had a running start behind the wall or something like that, because as he's hit, you can hear him yell out in pain, and before I could slam on the brakes or swerve or anything like that, his momentum sends him flying into the path of my truck's front passenger tire, head first. The sounds I heard and the feeling of the impact will stay with me forever. To this day, it's potholes that get me. Anytime I go over a pothole I can't avoid or a necessary speed bump, my stomach flips a little bit. Also, I notice since I got home, if my cousins or someone's kids in the family are playing around and I see one of them start to climb on top of the other and get anywhere near their head, I'm quick to split them up or tell them to relax a little bit and play video games or do something else. I couldn't wait for that deployment to be over. I wouldn't say it was unique because every day in itself was always something new, and the child may not have been a soldier. I was the medic riding in the back right seat of a Humvee back in '09. I saw a child about 10 plus minus 2 years of age from the back seat of his parents' Mercedes, which was at my 3 o'clock, pointed 9mm at my gunner whose fire sector was to my 9 o'clock. I immediately open my window and aim my M4 and let the convoy know what I'm seeing. Gunner's turn and a shot came from the Humvee in front of me and hits the car. No one was hurt. The reason I didn't fire is because I could see that he didn't have the instinct to pull the trigger. Had he been several years older and carried himself more like he knew what he was doing, then I'm positive I would have been the one to fire and it wouldn't have been the car that would have been hit. Not a soldier, but my stepdad was a paratrooper in the special forces. It took me several years to get him to tell me anything about the combat he had seen during the Gulf War. His first kill was a child around the age of 8. Stepdad was in the back of a convoy holding rear position. They stopped for some reason. I never asked, and the child came running at them from behind. He was naked except a thick vest and had a grenade in his hand. Stepdad told him to stop over 10 times. The boy's father was watching from a nearby building. Still messes him up and he goes to therapy 3 times a week. War is heck. Jesus, that's rough. We had a kid, maybe 8-10 years old, walk by one of our vehicles with a woman. As soon as he was alongside of the truck, he took out a grenade and tried to throw it on top of the truck. Mind you, these trucks are about 9 feet tall. Grenade bounced off the armor and back at the kid. Killed him and the woman. I wanted to feel sorry for him, but I really can't. I'm sure an adult told him to do it, but that could have killed me or one of my brothers. Not me, but my uncle. He was one of the unfortunate ones to make it back from Vietnam, but leave their mind behind. Him and a buddy went for a drink shortly before they were supposed to come back. A kid ran up to them in the street with a shoebox asking if they wanted to buy something. My uncle just brushed past the kid and kept walking, but his buddy tried humoring the kid. When the kid opened the box, an explosive inside went off and killed his buddy and the kid. When we were little, this was 20 years after he came back, we weren't allowed to have boxes when we were at his house. We couldn't run around near the house or be loud, have toy guns, G.I. Joe figures, wear camouflage or nothing when we'd visit. He was real uneasy about children even after that long. That wasn't the only recurring side effect he had, but the only one dealing with children. God, and he almost made it fricking home. Frick this world. A buddy loaded his saw. 2 rounds, then a tracer round. He would shoot over their heads and hope it was enough to scare the kid away. I don't know if it was actually me who fired the shot, but me and a few other guys tagged a kid who probably couldn't have been older than. He had a Tamagotchi in the pocket of his basketball shorts, and that always stuck with me cause the little critter on his game was hungry. We were in Kandahar province and always dealt with the usual bulls like IEDs, pot shots at us, and the occasional mortar RPG fire, but one of the things that will always haunt me personally was we were on task that day to do route clearance for the villagers and for another group of guys going out onto a 3-day mission when we came under fire from the east of our vehicles. This is a small village, so we could tell where firing was coming from, so we put on suppressing fire and 40mm their way. After about an hour of constant firing and wondering where the frick the enemy was going to go next, we had some children at say ages 8-14 come out into the open, and we immediately had to train on them. Firing from the enemy was still continuing, but it was from our south now. The kids were on our western flank. They came out and shoved this child, maybe 7 or 8 years old or so, out in front of our vehicles, maybe 25 meters out. I and other soldiers had our sights on these kids, but me being 18 years old and never shooting someone before didn't think that the kid they shoved out had anything menacing about him, so I kept my eye on the older kids. After 2 minutes or so of the other kids telling him to go away from them, the little boy was bawling my tie the whole time. And he started to run toward us, not fast but maybe a jog, and that when one of the other kids was spotted holding a homemade detonator. Me and the others were screaming contact, but we didn't know where it was going to come from when, lucky for us, I saw the little boy's shirt flutter up as he was running, and the thing that was strapped to his chest we later found out was RDX, or some form of plastic explosive wrapped with hot glue, metal and nuts and bolts around his chest, so I took the shot without thinking. The kid hit the ground like a sack of wet flour and the bomb blew up maybe 10 meters from the Humvee. I'll never forget the look on that terrified little boy's face as I swept his life right from out under him with one squeeze of the finger, all because his piece of crap father or mother strapped their own confused little boy in explosives and sent him on his way. Some people are just freaking monsters. Sorry you had to go through that fricked up traumatizing crap. In Iraq about late '09. These group of kids were throwing rocks at our convoys. It continued. Finally one day, it wasn't Iraq, it was an RKG-3 grenade. Fricked some people up. Luckily no one died, but some guys went home. Row changed. If you see a kid cocking back his arm, you put them down without question. I remember staging to go out on a patrol, and the platoon sergeant was doing inspections with the squad leader and asked me what do I do if I see a kid like he's about to throw something. I said I can't shoot a kid without being sure. He said that I had everyone else on patrol to think about and needed to know if he could count on me, since I was air guard with a 240. I said I could be counted on. It really hit home what was going on that early in the deployment. Like holy crap, this isn't a freaking game. We were on patrol later and some kids start throwing rocks. We dismount and my squad leader goes up to the kids and has his M4 in their faces. Throws one on the ground and is yelling at them to stop throwing freaking rocks. A man comes outside and tells my squad leader that they are just babies. This is phonetically how he said it. And please mister, my squad leader told him, and next time I will kill your babies. The big thing was turning off the mental switch. It was seeing it as a threat and stopping it if they put us in their sights, or in some cases wore suicide vests without attempting surrender. It was a lot of if this doesn't get done, me or someone I know isn't going home alive. US Marine here. The year was early 2003. During the United States' initial invasion of Iraq, I was a part of a convoy of Marines of about 5-6 vehicles that traveled from location to location setting up tactical airfields for attack helicopters. One time in the middle of the night we were to stop at some random strategic coordinates in the of nowhere. Our intelligence briefing had just told us about Iraqis were using armed children as bait with weapons and bombs. Pitch dark everywhere, you could barely see your hand in front of your face. Armed with only M16 assault weapons and an M240D 7.62 machine gun, we get out of the Humvees and start setting up for the night. All we hear is shuffling in the distance. Through the night vision goggles we could tell it was a family. About 3 adults and probably 10 or 11 kids, all living in a hut the size of an average living room made of mud. The next morning, me and my team of about 6 Marines were eating just outside our Humvees. All the children were out playing. The hut and the kids were about 100 feet away. Everything seemed fine except for one kid. He was not playing at all. He focused on us. He had to have been about 10 or 11. Not to cause any alarms to the kid, I just kept my eye on him. Then he took some steps towards us and stopped. Now my interest is piqued. He took some more steps and stopped. The whole time his hands were kept behind his back. He took a few more steps and stopped. I alerted my guys but told them to keep calm. I got up and calmly went to the back of the Humvee and grabbed my M16. I put my crosshairs on him. The kid couldn't see me. The back of the truck was covered. Then the kid just started outright walking towards my guys. My guys were yelling at him to halt and to show us his hands. He eventually stopped. By this time he's about 30 feet away. He finally threw his hands out and was begging for food. He had no idea he almost had his head blown off. All in all, there was no hesitation. It didn't really hit me what I was so ready to do until my tour in Iraq was over. Buddy I went to college with talked to me about his time in I wanna say Afghanistan, maybe Iraq. He was telling me this crap in 2008 and his tour ended a couple years earlier, so wherever we were then, probably Iraq. He told me a story about how he was part of a convoy and then some kids started rolling burning tires in front of where they were headed and behind them. Burning tires apparently give off a fuckload of smoke, so it fricks visibility. This was an ambush. He's telling me this and he says how a kid started rolling another tire and a few of them had guns and his commanding officer tells them to put them down and so he does and they go down. This always stood out to me because he never said he shot and killed them. He just said crap like we engaged and he went down. Like he didn't speak the cause and effect part of it, like who did what to who. It was just I did this and then this is a thing that happened to the other guy. Like they were isolated incidents. I was young when I asked him about this stuff and I honestly didn't think he saw any action. I was just making conversation and foolishly asked a really personal question and he answered me honestly. I was a little shook by it. Anyways, my buddy committed suicide in 2010. I have no details besides that he shot himself. I don't think he left a note, or if he did his family didn't share it. He was a nice enough guy. I try not to make too many assumptions because I know nothing about war, but if I had to hazard a guess I would say he probably committed suicide because he was too of a nice guy to deal with the weight of the crap he either saw or had to do over there. And now he's dead and he'll never get to grow old or start a family, and honestly what the frick did he even die for? It's so goddamn tragic. People who can't see the difference between supporting a war and supporting soldiers need to do themselves a favor and spend some time with veterans. Sorry if I rambled. My stepdad was in Vietnam and he had horrible PTSD. He would cry and say he didn't want the VA money. We had him apply for disability when he couldn't work for being wasted. He said it was blood money. He admitted he killed women, children and old people. He said he was scared and following orders. He told me some horrible stories when he was drunk. I wish I could forget them all. He was a good man but his demons got him in the end. He died in 2006. Rest in peace to him. I hope he was able to find some peace at least in afterlife. Had a friend have to pull the trigger once. I wasn't there and didn't press him about it. But given how things turned out, I'd say the biggest challenge for him was trying to get over it. Sharing this for my friend who was a veteran of Afghanistan and Iraq. He was awarded 2 silver stars that he only ever showed and explained to me and a couple of other people. One was from an incident where he had to open fire on kids of late elementary to middle school age, and another that got him a torso and legs full of shrapnel. He ended up shooting himself in the head and I found him in his apartment the next day. I tried to talk him out of the dark place he was in many times, but I ultimately failed him and it breaks my heart to this day. I'm so sorry. This is the saddest aspect of war. It's a fear I live with, being married to a combat vet, too. They give so much of themselves. A little more uplifting story here. I had to destroy some mortars in a yard, but there was a small firefight going on. So when there's a lull, I get the charges primed, go place them on the mortars and pull the igniter, giving myself about 3 minutes to get back to cover in case it pops off again. Well, I guess a family of about 4 kids took the lull in the firefight to start walking somewhere, right past about 10 pounds of explosives set to go off in about 2 minutes. I couldn't yell to them, so I just started shooting the ground in front of them, between them and the shot that was about to go off, until they started running in the other direction. So yes, I shot at kids, but it saved their lives. Unfortunately, my shooting made the Taliban start shooting again and the fight kicked off again. Kids lived though. Thanks for saving them. You did a good thing. My platoon was patrolling the Suck area in Ramadi in 2005 and popped around a corner to see 3 bad guys with AK-47s and masks filming some kind of video near their car. There was also a teenager, about 16-17 years old, who was with them, but he didn't have a weapons on him. I was second man in the patrol. My team leader popped the corner, a split second before I did. He screamed stop and started shooting when the men turned around. The 3 men were about 150 yards away and instantly peeled into the car and floored it. At that point, both me and my team leader engaged the vehicle, dumping a combined 25-30 rounds into it as it sped away. The car turned a corner and got away. No idea if we killed any occupants, but we fricked up the windows and rear of the car. The teenage boy didn't climb into the car, and so he sprinted across the street towards the main Suck area. I picked him up instantly with my AKG scope and tracked him. I led him a half step. There was just no way to miss the shot. In end, I couldn't do it. He was technically a bad guy, but he wasn't armed and he was basically a terrified kid when I got the drop on him. He disappeared into the Suck and we boogied over looking for the vehicle. We never found it, so we ended up getting extracted by QRF. Somewhere in Iraq there's a lucky as crap 30-year-old man. Somewhere in Iraq there's a lucky as crap 30-year-old man. If he survived that long, ISIS took Ramadi and held it as a stronghold for years. I'd bet my last penny he isn't alive. I cannot confirm that, of course, nobody could. Hopefully you scared him enough to change his life and he's out there somewhere leading a good life. I just want to say, I've never served, but my brother is a 3x vet from Kuwait in the Army Reserves as a medic. He's got severe PTSD and I've sometimes wondered what I can do to let him know. No judgment from me. I'll do whatever I can for you. Thank you, everyone who has served and shared their experiences. It's been quite enlightening. My bro told me the baddies sent a little girl, maybe 6 or 7, running at their Abrams tank. Apparently they were ordered not to stop. There were pieces of her in the treads, he says. Marine friend of mine told me a story about clearing buildings in Iraq. A member of his squad team whatever entered a room that contained a family, including parents and a 16-ish-year-old kid. The kid grabbed the barrel of the guy's gun, which caused him to pull back on the rifle to try to break the hold. Unfortunately, he accidentally pulled the trigger as well, killing the kid right in front of his parents. The rest of the platoon nicknamed him Slaughter after that. Holy frick, that dude would be haunted. I have a buddy who, before he switched to the military branch I'm in, has been to Afghanistan. His squad leader there told him he had once been in a very heavy battle during the beginning of the war. There were these children following his unit armed with only communication equipment. They would keep giving away their locations, making them unable to escape and receive heavy contact wherever they went. The squad leader made the decision and ordered to kill the children to save his men. They did not get any charges. I believe it was because using communication equipment like that can be seen as weapon usage. I'm not too sure about the last part though. It was something along the lines of that. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.